A car so fast that it caused outrage and the British government tried to ban it, and if that wasn't enough, it forged a career in the criminal underworld, terrorizing an entire county. A car born out of an ordinary GM platform, that is, until Lotus got their hands on it. In this video I will cover everything from its origin and criminal career. It's the Lotus Carlton. In the late 1980s, the Super Saloon was born, because only in the Snow Age a car which almost looked like a diesel commuter could hide a monster with performance levels only seen in offerings from Porsche or Ferrari. There have been fast sedans before. Mercedes-Benz tried this formula in 1968 with their 300 SEL 6.3 liters V8, but it was more of a luxury cruiser than a sports car. The creators of the Super Saloon weren't far away though. It was BMW. The M5 was released in early 1985, turning the ordinary 5 Series into a performance beast. The guys at M Division had the brilliant idea of grabbing the engine from their M1 supercar and drop it into the 5 Series. With 282 horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 6.2 seconds, it could keep up with the sport cars of its day. BMW had beaten everyone to the punch, kickstarting an arm race between manufacturers where executive sedans would be hot-rodded, ever more powerful and expensive. Someone who wanted a slice of the Super Saloon pie was Lotus. See, for a brief period of time, Lotus was owned by General Motors, of all things, and the president of Lotus, Mike Kimberly, had a simple idea. In 1987, he started to pitch a similar project to the Lotus Cortina of the 1960s, only using a bigger and heavier car instead, the Vauxhall Senator. His proposal was supported by Jack Smith, the president of GM Europe at the time. According to Mike, he loved the idea. However, the rest of the board wasn't so keen on this project. It took until 1988 until Mike's proposals went anywhere, and after a meeting with Opel and GM Europe, the plan of using the hefty Senator as a base was scrapped. GM Europe had new engines in the works for the Senator, a fact which Lotus wasn't aware of. Their attention shifted to the smaller Vauxhall Carlton instead, or Opel Omega. GM had already tried their hand at improving its performance, with the Vauxhall Carlton 3000 GSI in 1986. While it wasn't anywhere near the blistering pace of the M5, it was a step closer towards the more pedestrian offerings of the German manufacturers. With this saloon as a base, Lotus started working on the engine, stroking the original 3 liters to 3.6, the main feature being 2 Garrett 325 turbochargers. The new engine reached 377 horses and 415 pound-feet of torque. Of course, the regular gearbox will turn to ashes with this amount of power, so it was replaced with a Corvette Cedar-1 gearbox and Holden Commodore limited slip differential. Lotus made sure the Carlton would handle, with a unique suspension setup and borrowing self-leveling suspension from the Senator itself. Even the tires, Goodyear Eagles, were developed with input from Lotus itself. Since all the power in the world is worthless without good brakes, Lotus sourced brakes from AP Racing, so the Carlton wouldn't end as your usual turn 1 Monza pileup. But it wasn't all about performance. The new Lotus Carlton had wider fenders and a new body kit, paired with this unique imperial green color. Really, just look at this color. It's stunning, I just love it. With all of these unique elements put together, the Lotus Carlton looks mean, and I'm confident the aesthetic of this car played a small part in its controversial public image, which started to build shortly after its release in 1990. A column written by Bob Murray in Autocar magazine left a quote which is mentioned in every recent article of the Carlton, which reads, "Vauxhall should rethink the Lotus Carlton's top speed." End quote. I couldn't find the entire article sadly, but I would love to read it. Opel considered limiting the Carlton to 155 miles per hour or 250 kilometers per hour as other German performance cars, but they didn't, instead reaching a top speed of 176 miles per hour, even if some reports say 180 is the top speed, or 289 km per hour. It also managed to do 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. I find it funny. Here's a car magazine with access to sport cars which reach these speeds, but the Carlton was problematic? Really? It almost seems that the problem is with the brand, almost as if Vauxhall or Opel weren't allowed to make anything but boring commuters. Lucky for Lotus and Vauxhall, the rest of the press were more reasonable and embraced the Super Saloon, but Murray's words were picked by the uninformed and fear-mongering press, which started to rally a campaign over the Carlton speed in an effort to get it banned. The campaign reached a climax on September 16, 1990. In this day, the British House of Commons had a session in the topic of road safety. During this session, it will be Sir Anthony Grant who brought the Lotus Carlton into discussion. Quick disclaimer before I quote him. I will shorten this quote a little as it is a bit long, but I will leave the transcript of the full session pinned on the comment below for those who want to read it in detail. And now, I'll proceed to quote him. It is ludicrous that motor car manufacturers should be advertising cars that have maximum speeds of 140, 150 and 170 miles per hour. Some of these products are cheap cars that can be purchased by those who are incapable of driving them safely. These cars which require the skill of Nigel Mansell to operate them safely." End quote. This statement was followed by Mr. Alex Carlyle with an infamous line, I quote, "Will the honorable gentleman join me in condemning especially the heavy publicity that has been given recently to a Vauxhall Carlton, which is capable of apparently achieving 170 miles per hour? It should not be available for public purchase, even at the outrageous price of, I think, £45,000. End quote. Ah man, don't you love politics? I find it funny because it never changes. No matter where you go, politicians know so little about cars and their solution to each problem is a bigger stick. In the end, the Carlton wasn't banned in the UK or anywhere else. However, more challenges were ahead for the British Super Saloon. A difficult production process meant few units could be built. Vauxhall Carltons were shipped from Opel's factory in Europe. They arrived to Lotus as completed cars, who had to disarm them and transform them into Lotus Carltons. The economy wasn't on its side either. Being released during a recession, all of that performance didn't come cheap. The asking price was £48,000, which is £95,000 in 2022. For reference, a 1990 M5 would start at £43,465, which is £86,000 today. These factors made the planned run of 1,100 units become a mere dream, and in 1992 the Lotus Carlton ceased production, with 950 units built. While Lotus stopped building the Carlton, it would be in 1993 when it achieved the last part of its iconic track record. On November 26, in the town of Pershore, a Lotus Carlton was stolen from its rightful owner. This car wore the license plate 40RA, and that night a legend was born. In the hands of these thieves, 40RA will be their getaway vehicle on a series of raids, denominated by the press as ram riding. Why? Because the thieves will drive the car into the front of a store, get out, grab as many items as they can, and then flee the scene with their car of choice. Okay, so I have to name a few locations. If I butcher one, I'm sorry. This gang committed different robberies in the regions of Barmsgrove, Redditch, Withall, Belbroughton, Earlswood and Rubery, where they attacked a shop just 2 blocks away from a police station. Not that it mattered, as police officers only had their dinky MG Metro patrol cars with a top speed of 90 miles per hour. Police never stood a chance. All they could see were 2 adult males leaving the scene, and still to this day nobody knows any of the gang members. They were only active from November 1993 to January 1994, and it is unknown how many robberies they carried. With this in mind, we can only estimate how profitable their criminal career was. It is said they stole £20,000 across their heists, which equals to £34,000 in 2022. We don't know because nobody was caught. 40RA vanished with them as well. The last time anyone saw this car was after a robbery, running across the M6 motorway. There are multiple theories about how this car met its demise. Some have said for years the car is in the bottom of a river. Some said it was scrapped. Some others say the car was damaged and thrown away into a barn, but none have been confirmed yet. Despite the countless pictures of damaged Carltons claimed to be 40RA, some people say this car is still around. However, this is a mistake, as because there's another Lotus Carlton that has the 40RA license plate, but after the first car was stolen. This car is still around and is often used as a proof that someone owns the real 40RA, so where's the real one? My theory is simple really. Despite its blistering pace, a car this rare is bound to catch some attention and it will become a magnet for the thieves. Really, only 286 were sold in the UK, and given how the thieves operate in the same region, I am confident the cops could have found the car if they investigated. I know, it's the 1990s. We still had a modicum of privacy, and our lives weren't live streamed to the man. This was an age before you could get arrested for tweeting. For me, the car was destroyed in order to cover their trail, as it was full of fingerprints, enough to incriminate them and send them off to jail. Probably set on fire, as it will be the best way to get rid of any evidence. Don't ask me how I know. Keep in mind, we don't know anything about this gang, not even a picture, so I imagine they weren't amateurs and they wanted to cover their steps before things got too hot. I am not sure if we'll ever know anything else about this car or the gang. I am leaning towards no, but for the sake of future-proofing, I won't say anything. And what better way to end this story? A car which shook the world and vanished shortly after, becoming a piece of history. And a good one at that. Very few cars can brag about being targeted by their own governments as public enemies. I am looking forward to reading your comments on this car. For me, it will always be special, as I remember how I discovered it in Gran Turismo 4 and started to read about it in the internet. I couldn't believe there was a 4-door Lotus back then. And of course there's that infamous video of it pulling away from a police car, but that's not 40RA, it's a different car. If you haven't made it this far, remember to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time!